We are nothing sacred. We are nothing sacred. We are nothing sacred. With Maxwell Silverhammer. We are nothing sacred. With cruise control. We are nothing sacred.
Oh, yes. Once again, this is Nothing Sacred.
Yes, the Nothing Sacred interview. And I am actually here tonight. Yes.
Cruise Control's here. He's
me.
back.
Cruise Control. And then we've got over there
Maxwell Silverhammer.
And tonight, Max?
We've got Sam Peters, who is a retired Air Force major, also used to be a canine handler. And now he's got a new venture, which we're going to talk about here also on the show. Sam, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
And also, I got to tell you, man, we do this every time we have first responders or military or anybody on the show. But, man, we got to thank you for your service.
Absolutely. Thank you for doing things.
I appreciate it. It was
stuff that I couldn't do personally, just the temperament wise and other things like that in my mind. So I value those who actually have the temperament and the ability to do that kind of thing. And also to help support the law enforcement as well and first responders. So thanks.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It was a pleasure serving. So.
Awesome. You were military police in the Air Force, correct?
I was. That's correct. In the Air Force, we make a distinction from the Army and the Marines and Navy, for that matter, and we call ourselves security police when I went in, and now it's force protection security forces. So, but yes, I was in the Air Force. Law enforcement was my AFSC, or my specialty, if you will, and I had a specialty also on top of that as a canine handler, and I did that for 10 years in the Air Force.
Nice. So you have a big, your heart's really big in the law enforcement community, as far as, it holds a special place in your heart.
It really does. I mean, I joined the military. My father, both my brothers were in the Army. Funny story, right out of the gate here. You had to be an MP in the Army. You had to be 5'8", and I was only when I graduated high school, I was just a shade over 5 foot, so I couldn't do it. And my dad took me down the hall to the Air Force recruiter and said, "Yeah, sign right up." So here you go.
Oh, wow.
Damn.
Yeah.
So that's how you ended up in the Air Force.
That's how I ended up in the Air Force. And, God works in mysterious ways, and he put me there. It was a great career. We had learned early on that, canine was this thing that could happen if you're special and all of this. And then, 2 or 3 weeks into training, the canine recruiter showed up, and I jumped in, and it was a ton of fun. So
wow, awesome.
Nice.
Yeah. And of course, after that, you said you retired. You've done that and now you're on a venture, which is the main reason I guess you're on today, is because you're in a new venture, which is the law enforcement PAC, correct? Or if you want to go ahead and say the official name for it, if you'd like to.
Yeah, so it's the Law Enforcement Loyalty PAC, and PAC is P.A.C. for Political Action Committee.
Action Committee, exactly.
And it is a registered Nevada PAC. It's a state PAC. So the distinction between the political action committees on the federal and state level. On the state level PACs, we can affect and we can participate in ballot measures and campaigns and candidates races for everything from dog catcher or water board and small town Nevada all the way up to the governor's race. So
could you just to give us a small description of what the political action committee is, just a very brief one for our audience, just because sometimes it gets kind of confusing with those, and how do you relate to each party and that kind of thing?
Yeah, so our PAC is a conservative PAC. It is a registered PAC on the Republican side, but our focus is to promote and elect pro law enforcement and pro veteran candidates in those state and local races, and specifically those candidates who back law enforcement. So we did, in fact, get into a race that was nonpartisan in the last election, and we will do it again if it's the right thing to do. And we wouldn't shy away from getting behind the right, Democrat, if that person was there that backed law enforcement. We wouldn't shy away from that. The whole goal of this political action committee is, we saw, and you asked for quick, and I'm trying, but
it's okay.
All of the stuff that we're trying to do, was born out of what happened over the last summer with, defunding the police across the country, riots all over the place, and basically local officials turning their backs on law enforcement. You can't have people in elected office that are focused on making policy and laws and telling police officers, hey, you have to go enforce this. And then when they go enforce it, turning their back on them, or worse, putting them under the chopping block for doing the best that they could under the circumstances that they were given.
Yeah,
and it's just that's not how that works. And the Law Enforcement Loyalty PAC is going to make sure that candidates and people in elected positions are loyal to the people that they have enforcing the laws that they create.
Well, I see it as a PWC situation, police when convenient. So, when they want police for their COVID laws and stuff like that, we need police out there, man. All the police making sure that all that stuff's regulated, that people aren't, that, bars are social distancing and whatever. But then when it comes to anything else, it's like, well, oh, you're racist, you're this, we're going to defund you. I have never heard the term defund the police until last year.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, and it was a matter of convenience. It was race baiting, and it's still going on today in some places. It's a little bit apropos that places like Los Angeles, I saw just this morning, decided to spend an extra $36 million or something like that because crime took off after they defunded their police department, and same thing in Minnesota. And
it's everywhere. It's taking off.
It's laughable. But it's also tragic.
I think it's really scary. It's the phenomenon of actually having your government actively go toward political groups like Black Lives Matter that are actively against the police. So you've got your people in civic power, your mayors and stuff, literally writing. They could have just wrote "fuck the police" on the street. Excuse me, they could have just wrote that.
No, you're right.
And that's the same exact thing what they're saying. It's saying because they don't trust, because the police aren't racist, but only 19, of course, black people were killed last year who had guns. And most of those were actually explainable, not the thousands that people think. It's insane that people think it's just incredible that the propaganda machine is coming from the mayors and the city halls and the governments of DC and Portland. Portland's still a mess. New York. Everything. It's all, it's insane. So that must be just completely demoralizing.
And it is, from a military background that I came from, no soldier, no airman, no military member left behind kind of atmosphere. I saw this stuff going on. So I ran for Congress in 2020. I was a close second in a Republican primary. And after that primary in June is when things really started heating up as far as riots and defunding the police and all of this other stuff. And the reasons I got into that campaign to begin with, they didn't go away and they still haven't gone away. And I had to do something. I had to try and make a difference. So I gathered some of my campaign supporters for my congressional race. We pitched this idea of putting this political action committee together. We did, and we jumped right out. We started raising money before the November election. In about a 3-month span, we raised close to $40,000. People were behind the idea of making sure we had pro law enforcement candidates and elected officials here in Nevada. So we jumped in and we had our hand in about 20 races. And we did the best we could in the short period of time, and we're going to keep it going forward.
Do you guys do anything federally? Because I know on your website it said something about you'd mentioned federally too, because we have a lot of listeners, obviously, that, aren't in Nevada. That's usually the case. Yeah. So, I mean, is how can they get involved, or how can they
reaching out to other states? Like, that kind of stuff. Yeah.
So there's, this thing is, again, it's about 7-8 months old. There is a discussion going on right now of taking this to a much larger scale, state by state. Again, that differential between the state PACs, each state has their own rules on how political action committees operate and have to be registered. And then, of course, the federal PAC is a completely different animal with a completely different set of reporting requirements, and it gets and then it starts to get expensive. So having the PAC in Nevada and the money that we're able to raise to keep it going is it's doable. And the other, and really, again, we are having the discussion of going state by state on some of these on this PAC and having perhaps a chapter in each state. So I mean, if there's a listener out there that wants to get involved and jump in and kind of franchise it in a state other than Nevada, then I would be absolutely willing to talk to them. And I'll plug the website. It's super easy, lawenforcementloyaltypac.com. And you can send me a message there. And we'll of course answer, but that's what we're up to, and we're starting to look at the 2022 races right now and see where we can have some impact. So
that would be great, man, because we do, that type of thing scares me, honestly. Like, the whole defunding police. It's like, well, what do you want to take away our law enforcement? Seriously?
Well, it's the nature of the fact that it's not even anti like law, like it's treating people like law enforcement as like they're not people. Like it's dehumanizing. It's the same thing with when they removed live PD. They didn't do that because people were scared. They did that so people wouldn't have any empathy toward. I mean, I'm of the opinion at this point that there's a massive mainstream media conspiracy. I'm just going to say it. They know what they're doing. They have an agenda. It's obvious with the agenda, especially with the current quote unquote president. Teleprompter king. Anyway,
Pervertus,
literally, and you can't read off, and you have to read the right note of the teleprompter next time when he's talking about gun control. But my point is, that it's very scary in my opinion. More, I mean, the defund the police is just a symptom of the hatred and the trust against just human beings who are doing a job, most of them that believe in what they're doing. And they're not, I mean, of course there's the asshole cops, and there's no problem with police reform, right? I don't think anybody has a problem with making it better and making things better in a lot of ways, more accountability, whatever. But you don't have your citizenry and the government hating on the people that are trying to protect them.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right, and I think the way that I look at it, the police are being marginalized as they're a tool, like was said earlier. It's a police when convenient kind of thing. PWC. Put them out. Yep, absolutely, and it's you're right. It's incredibly scary, and we just can't stand for it. If we're going to have a country that is one of law and order and one of that's not chaos, because we're going down that road. I mean, if anybody's watching the news and everybody's seeing what's going on in our federal government for sure, and local governments across a number of territories and states and whatnot, it's the left is they hate the conservative values. They hate anything that doesn't benefit them. And I think it's a greed, power, and money play on the back end. And you mentioned the media is in on it. I 100% agree. They are in on it. And they're trying to walk a fine line, and it's incredibly disingenuous on what they're doing and how it's awful. When a guy stands in front of a burning building with people throwing stuff shit around behind him, mostly peaceful. And it's mostly peaceful here in wherever it was.
Or how about when they about Portland? Does anybody know about Portland? Portland is still on fire, and because it's completely because these mayors, they won't let the police do their job. They have these demilitarized zones. What the hell they're called?
Chop zones or chop zones or
chop zones.
Whatever. I think there's a new one. There was a new one for a while, and I don't know, Seattle. I don't know if it's still there, but the point is they're encouraging this stuff, even as they call the police when the rioters come to their houses as the mayors and try to burn them down.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
That. Insane, man.
Yeah. The other thing I'd say about that too is we've got to be careful. You mentioned, there's nothing wrong with police reform, and on face value, I agree. If you're making it better, if there's a movement to make it better and to make, police tactics, police, abilities, their relationships with communities. If those are the things that you're trying to make better, absolutely. Let's reform. Let's go down that road, etc. But that's not what's happening. What's happening is these liberal left nut jobs are coming out and they're saying, well, it's police reform, so we're going to get rid of qualified immunity. That's a good thing. That's bullshit. It's not a good thing. People don't understand what qualified immunity is, but they put it under the umbrella of reform, and they repeat it as they do in their their agenda. They repeat it, and it becomes true.
Let's
and
go
and
with.
It's
I'm sorry. Go. I was just going to say, let's actually go into that because I was actually thinking about it like that a little bit myself.
Yeah.
Because what you want is accountability. You have to have accountability because you
Absolutely.
have people that are. But the qualified immunity. So go into why that. What's the misleading stuff on that? Actually, if you don't mind.
Well, so qualified immunity is if a police officer is making apprehension and somebody gets hurt, and all procedures, all training, all necessary steps were taken to protect. And I'm using just an example, right? Because there's thousands of examples that this would partake in or play into. So an officer is making an arrest in a traffic stop because there's probable cause to do so, and he brings the person out of the vehicle, takes him to the curb, out of traffic, away from whatever, and tries to handcuff him and do the pat downs and all of these things, and the person starts fighting back and ends up popping a shoulder out of place because he was fighting the cop. Well, under qualified immunity, the police officer was doing exactly what he was supposed to be doing and is protected from lawsuits. The person might sue the police department and will likely lose because, again, in the scenario, police officer was doing exactly what he was supposed to be doing. That's qualified immunity. He can't sue the police officer as an individual. He has to go through the municipality or whatever agency. That's qualified immunity in a nutshell. It's deeper than that, obviously.
Got it. And that's very, that makes
I'm
a lot
glad
of
you
sense.
explained that, actually, because I was always thinking it was something else, that it was something negative almost.
Well,
no, so qualified immunity is just, but again, it's, immunity. We're giving cops immunity so they can go out and bash people over the heads and do whatever they want. No, not even close. That's not what that's about. It gives police officers protections and gives police officers and their families, quite frankly, protections from, again, and this is where the law enforcement loyalty pact comes in. It gives them from protection from people going to their elected officials and their elected officials turning their backs on them from, when they do exactly what they're supposed to be doing. And again, they follow procedures, they can't get sued. You take that away, and everybody that has any interaction with a police officer that's not in their best, or in their favored interest, they're going to sue. They're going to turn around and sue the police officer. Look at this guy. I'm going.
Well, you see it with George Floyd's family now. They made, they made some big money.
Or even that whole thing. They're arresting cops left and right for people running at them with knives and shooting them. Thank
you. That's a great example. That is a great example. The other example I would use is the taser event at the Burger King parking lot.
Oh Jesus!
The Wendy's where they burnt and then they burnt down the
whatever
Wendy's.
It was. Yep.
And they burnt down the
Wendy's. Totally stupid.
And the cops were charged with murder.
Yeah.
Wow.
There's no way. And there's just insanity. But what I was getting back to, I was coming on to something on when you were talking about how the diplomatic or not diplomatic. I'm thinking of qualified immunity, diplomatic immunity. If you remember from Legal 2, qualified immunity is that it makes it worse for the cops because if you don't have that, they're going to question everything they do and they're not going to actually work. So their reaction that would actually be the right one, they're going to be unsure of everything they do because they can't be sure because it's not.
It's the basic Good Samaritan law. So you're walking down the street and there's somebody walking the other way and they start choking. As a Good Samaritan, most states have a Good Samaritan law. You can help this person. You can put your hands on them. You can give them the Heimlich. If you break a rib in the process of doing the Heimlich, you're not going to get sued. You're going to have some Good Samaritan protection because you were doing what was right for that person in that scenario. It's a very similar, or trying to, right. And qualified immunity is a very similar aspect. And if you take that away, the cop has no incentive other than to being a good human being to try and help in such scenarios where they're putting themselves at incredible risk for lawsuits.
It's amazing why anybody would want to be a cop now.
Exactly.
That's it.
That's the whole point. That's what they want. They don't want the more lawlessness they have, the more they have to depend on big daddy government to support you. And also,
get you a bunch of social workers out there to talk to mentally ill people. That's another crazy thing. Involving like imagine a social worker. Somebody should do a parody video where it's a guy, you know, in a house with a shotgun and he's got a hostage, and then you got this little social worker there that's going, okay, now come on, let's talk about this. Did your drunk father ask you? What? You know?
Yeah, there's nothing.
While he's doing a line of coke and freebasing meth. Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
Bring up
and
he's
in his right mind,
bring
he's
up
going to
the
be
social worker
because they're going to help him. And I think, and not saying that there wouldn't be a place for people to be able to take the load off in certain situations, and qualified people.
Absolutely.
However, I think the problem is that we are so coddled in this freaking country that people don't realize how stressful and how hard it is to be. Well, I could, if he didn't want to shoot him. You're not playing Grand Theft Auto, bro. You're not in the game. This you've got to remember, the cops not only thinking about they're not only thinking about the people's lives who are there, who are in the situation, the perpetrator's life. They have to think about their own life because they could die. So people don't even realize, oh no, you can just sit there and talk. If a guy's swinging a machete at your head, just back away and say, hey bro, it's all good. And then maybe give him a hug, you know, reach out and hug him. Like go around the machete and give him a big hug. No.
But that's these armchair cops, you know, like Joe Biden, same shit. Shoot him in the legs.
Shoot him in the leg, right.
Yeah. Like, how are you gonna? How are you even qualified? You know, I mean, God, you know, with all the COVID stuff, whenever I give my 2 cents, I get medical people jumping my shit. But boy, you know, people can sure critique the hell out of the police, even though they've never been a police officer a day in their life.
Yeah. Maxwell, he's been in government for 47 years. He knows best.
Oh,
right?
You're right.
Of course. Yeah.
I mean,
just look at his son's laptop.
Show.
You'll be able to find everything.
Hey,
I'm sorry. Yeah, well, no one knows about that either because of the media. But it's really. But going back to like the idea of police officers and being reform. Another thing, we have a lot of people on our show who are really into the post-traumatic stuff for police officers, the help after they've been a police officer because of all the stuff they have to go through. And oh my God, I can't believe I feel bad about it now. What's the station, Brett?
Which one?
Valor
Station.
Valor Station.
Yeah, Patrick Cullinan and Andrew Courier. Yep.
And this is the kind of symptom that happens from this. There's this place they're trying to get a place going in
Georgia.
Yeah, Atlanta. Yeah. It's called Valor Station. And it's a place where people who have had issues with psychiatric issues or drug issues or alcohol issues based upon around like an issue they had of being a police officer, you know, seeing, you know, bodies ripped in half every day in car, you know, all this shit they see, everything. And the people around them, even though they knew it was police officers and people that had served them, were like, oh, not in my backyard. And it's like, because they're having like the city council said, oh, well, you know, it's the entrance drives by a community and like, it just shows how it's a symptom of how screwed up it is that these people can see all this crazy stuff and nobody really gives a shit, you know, or a lot of people don't.
Well, I mean, so there's a faction of folks out there again in the elected officials, and these are the people who we're trying to weed out and make sure that they don't get into office to begin with. You're right. They're the people who want the person that's going to go do the dirty job, but they don't want to be bothered with it. I'll give you an example. Hillary Clinton, perfect example. When I was a canine handler, I was on a detail in Chicago with an explosive detection dog, and there was probably 7 of us there sweeping a facility that she was going to have her 50th birthday party in, and we were told very clearly by Secret Service that when we got the code word that Hillary Clinton was coming to the facility, we had to vacate immediately because she had no desire to see any security whatsoever, let alone dogs. Had no desire, hated them, wanted them gone, didn't want to see them, etc. And that's what you're dealing with. You're dealing with people like that want all of the benefits of a of security, but don't want to see it, don't want to get their hands in it, don't want to deal with it.
Indentured servants,
and that's and that's part of that problem.
The gated community syndrome, where people say, "Oh, yeah, let's defund the police," except you know who doesn't say it? The people in the inner cities. They don't want the police defunded.
Right?
No, they don't.
No, they don't.
Surely not.
The ones that are the supposed victims of the police.
The guy in the high rise, you know, like playing on, you know, sipping his latte and you know, looking out his window.
Yeah. I think we should defund these police.
By the way, security downstairs, please hold my calls.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah,
it's the indentured
people
servant
that live.
You know.
Yep. the people who live behind gated walls and other people that are carrying guns. They want nothing to do with it. Just make it good. Don't tell me about it. It's sad. Yep.
It is.
Yeah, it really is.
Do your job. I don't want to see you, kind of thing. Well, and you said that earlier, police are getting marginalized. I mean, even, on social media, I'll post a lot of pro-police stuff, and I've actually lost some friends. Not that I give a shit. They don't belong in my life anyway.
Well, yeah, first of all, they weren't friends. So,
yeah.
But I mean, it's unfortunate, but I tell the police officers, and I always, try and stop and say thanks for what you're doing and this and that, and I try and make sure that all the police officers and all the first responders that I come in contact with know that, look, you're not out here alone. There is way more people who love what you're doing than the other. Part of the problem is that the people, the jerks that want to defund the people who want to live in their ivory tower and not have to deal with the real world. They usually have a platform and an amplified podium. So that's part of the issue that we deal with.
Yeah, they've got the culture in hand, and that's an uphill battle in some ways for you guys. But obviously, so you guys are next up. Your next step with the new with the loyalty pack. Law enforcement loyalty pack. What's your next steps? What are you guys doing now? And like you said before, there's ways that people can reach out to you guys, especially those in Nevada. I'm not sure anybody out of state, but if you're living in Nevada, or what can people do, and what are you guys up to?
Yeah, so we are a Nevada state PAC, and it's anybody in the country, any U.S. citizen can donate and help out and do those things. So the next step in the PAC, for sure. And again, there's a donate button at lawenforcementloyaltypac.com if there's people engaged in that and want to do it. And I will say 100% of the funds go directly to candidates and candidates' campaigns. We do direct funding to candidates, and we do indirect spending where we'll do some advertising for them and social media advertising, those kind of things, and get the word out about their campaigns once we've vetted them and make sure that they're the right person for the seat that they're going after. So that's kind of the next step and what we're looking at. Again, we're looking at the 2022 races, who in our state assembly and our state senate are up for reelection or not. We've got people, sitting assemblymen in Carson City right now who are pushing bills. Like I saw it this morning, came out a couple of days ago. There's another attempt to make Nevada a sanctuary state. And I will tell you that I believe he's a Senator Mo Dennis is the person who is Senator Mo Dennis in District 2.
State?
He submitted a bill, and it's sanctuary state, basically saying that law enforcement and civil functions and utilities can't assist federal law enforcement when it comes to immigration laws, which makes us a sanctuary state. That bill is in the legislature right now. So we'll be going after people like him to make sure that those type of elected officials are removed in 2022. So that's kind of what we're up to. That's what we're looking at. We're also recruiting candidates. If there's people in Nevada that hear this and are of pro law enforcement mind and want to step up and serve in an elected position, reach out to us. We'll try and find the right position for you or help you in that process, because it is a process. So that's kind of what we're up to on a personal level. I will tell you, I want to throw a plug out there. I'm the founder of the Law Enforcement Loyalty PAC. I'm currently the chairman. On April 1st, I'm going to step down from chairman. I'm going to stay on the board as a political advisor and just an advisor at large. But I'm going to step down from my chairman role in that because I'm also running for Congress because we need people at the federal level that know what the hell they're doing. And put some sense into the House of Representatives. So I'm going after Stephen Horsford. And if you want to talk about somebody who's not good for law enforcement, it's that guy.
Okay.
So. Well, and another thing people can do too is they can subscribe, on your website so they get emails. Yeah. Because what I had trouble with last election is you know, all these people I didn't know, like, oh shit, should I vote for this person? Are they going for what I want, or who is this? You know, so it would be good to have something where they educate you on who you're voting for first, so you know when you go to the polls, like, oh, this is who I want. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we do have, there is an endorsement page on our website. They can subscribe. You can certainly subscribe. And when it comes time for our endorsements to start going out, which will obviously be much later into 22, those emails will go out, and they'll also be posted on our Facebook page, which is an active way we use to get people's names out. So
nice. Nice.
Wonderful.
You know, I've also seen some things you've been posting real quick. You had something like you've been talking a lot about the casinos that aren't opening. And why is that? You know, because now they can open, right? Or is there some kind of regulations that are holding them back? What's the deal with that?
You know, it's the governor has got people are trying to figure out what he's doing. And I know there's a couple of very good conservative and pro law enforcement legislators in Carson City right now that have bills on the floor or trying to get their bills heard to take away the governor's powers to shut down and the emergency powers. Basically, the current law in the book says that, you know, the governor has, once he declares an emergency, he can keep it going for as long as he wants, and that's where we're at. And that's the short answer to your question. What we're trying to figure out, we, the collective conservative base, are trying to figure out what's going through the governor's mind on, you know, why are we only, how do we go from 25 or 20% or 25% open to an arbitrary number of 35% open to, but some places and some types of industry can open up much larger. And if you have the rodeo, well, you can have 2,500, but if you have March Madness, you can have 3,000. If you have the Golden Knights, which, you know, I'm not trying to diss any of these organizations, but just arbitrary numbers of spectators. And the casinos, you're only allowed to be at 50% capacity. But you know what? That airline that just flew into Las Vegas was 100% capacity, and they were inches from each other in a tube for 3 or 4 hours, breathing their recycled air. But you know,
no, they had masks on. Remember?
Don't go into that casino at more than 50%. And again, so I you know, a little bit of, you know, levity there, but it's. We're trying to figure that out. That is the burning question, and it's really what the hell is going on, and it's it needs to end.
Well, who keeps track of that? How can you? You know, I mean, is there a counter?
Well,
you know.
Yeah, it's, you know, the occupancy of the hotel is what they're looking at. I mean, you know, 50% of the rooms. If they don't fill 50% of the rooms, they won't have 50% of the people that.
Well, that's dumb,
you know,
too.
People go down the casinos and mingle. All that's ridiculous.
Right, like I could go in there right now and have dinner.
It's a headache waiting to happen. And
No, it's nonsense. And oh, by the way, if you've seen the pictures, like in the RJ last Sunday from March Madness, where the strip was completely packed with people walking on both sides of the street, and casinos were full, you know, with people watching basketball games, and sports books were full, etc. Our infection rates, again, remember, this is all because of COVID, and our rates are down below 5%, which is below the CDC, you know, target. But the numbers, we're not opening up any further. It has been. I will continue to be. You will not convince me otherwise. This entire past year has been about control. It was about the 2020 election. It's about, and at this point, it's about money. And when you start looking at the vaccinations and all of these things, and you know, it's got people afraid. And so
unnecessarily
that's
afraid,
what it's all
too.
about.
You know, people are waking up, and people are waking up, as you can see, the mainstream media is losing people like just crazy. They're all going to, if you look at the YouTube videos on mainstream media sites, there's like 3 times, 5 times as many negatives. People are waking up, and people are seeing what's going on, because you can't be this obvious and stupidity without some people going, hey, you know, it's crazy.
Well, you hope, but God, some people are just so indoctrinated, and they're just eating that cookie up, man.
Yeah, it's very true.
Yeah, they really are. And, you know, 80 million of them voted for Joe Biden. So,
that's a whole different ballot of wax, and we can't say anything on YouTube because they will.
Did you say ballot of wax?
A ball of wax, ballot of wax, ballot of whack.
Yeah, that too.
The wax ballot.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Sam.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for coming on, spending some time with us, and just keep us up to date on what's going on. Give the site again one more time.
I will do that. And thank you guys for having me. And thanks for what you guys do for law enforcement and keeping them on the forefront of people's minds and getting the word out that, like you said early in the show, there are so many good cops. The bad ones, the good cops want to get rid of the bad cops just as much as the other people want to get rid of bad cops.
Oh yeah.
And that's an important note to have. So thanks for keeping that out there, guys. And we'll do the same thing. And we're gonna hit some of these elected officials hard that have gone after law enforcement and just have bad policies and get them out of office. So lawenforcementloyaltypac.com, and PAC is P.A.C. lawenforcementloyaltypac.com. You can check us out at Facebook at LEL PAC. At LELPAC is the site on Facebook. And thanks guys so much. I appreciate all you do, and look forward to talking to you again soon.
Yeah, cool. Hang on for just a second as we go off.
We'll
talk for just a moment, but I am Cruise Control.
And I'm Maxwell Silverhammer.
And that's the story there. Bitches! See you later on, guys. That's the second interview.
Yeah.
We are nothing sacred. We are nothing sacred. We are nothing sacred. With Maxwell Silverhammer. We are nothing sacred.